Hello everyone, this is Paukshte Fashion Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. Last time I talked to you about my plans and the dresses I'm going to sew. You've already seen this sketch. This is the dress I'll be working with today. I'm going to make it of knitted fabric. This is going to be a pretty warm dress. Anyway, it will be very beautiful, so I'll be able to wear it not only to work, but also to a theater or to a restaurant, for example. The fabric is very soft to the touch. It's double-sided. I'm going to make the dress of the dark side. I can move this piece of fabric aside. Dresses of such designs can be made not only of knitted fabrics. Let's have a close look at the sketch once again. Here's the back pattern. There is no need to change it. The only thing that can be changed in the back is the waistline. You can make a seam here. It's not necessary though. I'm not going to make a seam on the waistline. You can do it if you want to. My back is pretty straight, so there's no need for me to make a seam. I recommend making the seams on the waistlines for those who have round backs. It will be very convenient to make tucks in this case. You can even make dresses with no waist seams on the front and the seams on the back. It will be much easier to make the dresses fit you perfectly in this case. Have a look at the sketch once again. I know that it seems simple, but it's actually pretty complicated. I've traced only the half of the back. This is the front. I've made a whole piece pattern for it. This is how it looks like now. First, I'm going to make the front neckline about 2 cm wider and 14 cm deeper. There will be a fold here on the center front. I remind you that when making the front neckline wider, you need to make the back neckline wider as well. The shoulder should be even. Have a look at the front neckline. This is how it looks like in my pattern. You can draw it however you want. I've made it slightly round. You can make it straight, you can make it wider or deeper. You do not even have to make V-necks. Round necklines would also look good in this case. You can make the front neckline of any shape you want. The most important thing is that I show you the needed sewing techniques. Let's have a close look at the sketch. Notice that the pleats are stitched right over left. There is a wrap over here on the center front, so there will be a lot of layers of fabric here. Don't worry, I am going to show you what to do. I'm going to make a pattern for the lower part of the dress first, and then for the upper part. First, I need to cut the pattern according to the waistline. I can move the upper detail of the pattern aside. There is one thing I wanted to tell you. I raised the waistline for about 2 centimeters. I want it to be placed a bit higher. It's up to you whether to do it or not. This is the center front. As I've already said, I moved the waistline 2 centimeters higher. I remind you that this is the lower part of the front pattern. I'll be working with the first 2 pleats now. Let's have a look at the sketch once again. I'm talking not about the outer ones, but the inner ones. I think that this detail will be about 10 centimeters wide. This is where the first pleat is going to be placed. Notice that the line shouldn't go down to the bottom. It should kinda go to the side.
Но близко к низу, вот так, чтобы линия ушла. Это первую линию мы ведем.
I've already showed you how to make an origami style dress. I think that many of you have already made it. This one is pretty similar. Have a look here. This is where the first line ends. This is where the second line of the pleat should end as well. It should be drawn in such way that the two lines meet in this point. I am going to use a longer ruler to do it. The second line shouldn't be drawn by side. This is how it's going to look like. The drawn detail is triangular. I want to mark it. I'm working with a pleat which is placed closer to the center front. This is the pleat I've just drawn. I'll be working with the second one next. What should I do? First, I need to move the dot opening. The original one should be closed. The making of this pattern requires some thinking. I like it. The dot was moved in such way that the triangular detail ends with it. I'll close the opening with the sticky tape. Next, I need to outline the triangular with a marker pen. I want you to see everything clearly. This is how the first pleat looks like now. The first detail is ready. It's triangular. The extra pieces can be cut. I hope that everything is clear so far. Next, I need to fold the piece of the tracing paper in half. I'll sign the drawn lines. The first line and the second line. It will be more convenient to work with them in this case. Next, I need to fold a piece of the tracing paper in half and put the fold right on the first line. Watch what I'm doing. I folded the piece of the tracing paper in half and put the fold right on the first line. Next, I need to outline the drawn detail with a marker pen. The piece of the tracing paper is pretty thin, so the drawn detail is seen through. This is why I'm drawing the details with the marker pens. A pencil wouldn't be seen through the paper. Next, the drawn detail should be cut. Let's have a look at the cut detail. This is the same triangular, but it's double. There is a fold in the center of this detail. Next, I need to cut the second line in the pattern. I need to make an opening here. I remind you that this is the second line. Make an opening here. It should be wide enough for you to be able to insert this detail here. Please be very attentive. I don't want you to have any questions left. Why do you think such garments are usually very expensive? Because they're very complicated. It's very hard to find the high-quality garments in the mass market shops. Just imagine how good you will look like wearing such amazing dresses. You will definitely catch everyone's attention. Women will be guessing how much money you spent on the dress. No one has to know that you made it yourself. I hope that everything is clear so far. From now on, I'll be working with just one half of the pattern. I'm going to cut this one and throw it away. When I make the first pleat, I'll show you how to make the second one. First, I'm going to cut the pattern on the center front. This is what I'm doing now. I'll sign it. I also want to note that there will be a fold here. Watch what I'm doing next. The additional detail should be folded according to the mark on the center. The fold should match the first line. I need to draw a mark here. This is the center front. Notice that the pattern looks as if it hasn't been changed.
И у нас получается наша же точно то, что сначала и была без всякой складочки.
Perfect.
Деталь. И теперь
I can start drawing the second pleat next.
ко второй складочке.
I remind you that this is the right half of the front. The draping will be stitched right over left. That means that this detail will be attached on top of the same detail in the left half.
Получится у нас вот такой вот запах складок.
This is how the pleats are going to look like. Please be very attentive. I hope that everything is clear so far. Next, I need to draw the second pleat absolutely the same way. Guys, be very attentive. The width of the pleats depends on your waist measurement. This is very important. If you have a sleeve waist, this detail can be made 10 centimeters wide. I'm going to place the second pleat about 7 centimeters away from the first one. Next, I need to draw a line parallel to this one. The second pleat is going to be much smaller. I'll make it about 6 centimeters wide. You can make it even tighter if you want. The second line should go to the same point. This is the pattern for the second pleat. Here it is in the sketch. I want to mark this detail as well. The techniques which I show you in this video are very useful. I've learned them from the book on the Japanese designs and sewing techniques. This is the cut detail at the front. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to use it for making a pattern for the second pleat. I'll sign these lines as well, the first one and the second one. A piece of the tracing paper should be folded in half, and the fold should be put right on the first line. The drawn triangle should be outlined. I don't need to measure anything else. The drawn detail should be simply outlined. Check if the detail is accurate right after cutting. It is. Next, I need to cut the second line. Make an opening here and insert the triangle in it. This is the best way for making such dresses. Be very accurate and attentive. The dresses we sew should be perfect. Don't think that it's a waste of time. Don't think that it would be easier to make the draping when cutting the fabric. This is the best way for making accurate dresses of this design. It will be very easy to cut the fabric using this technique. There will be no need to measure or calculate anything. You will put the pattern on the fabric and cut the details right along it. Sometimes our customers create very interesting and unusual designs. It takes us a lot of time and hard work to make accurate patterns. I want us to be different and beautiful. The clothes we sew should be perfect. We need not only to look good, but also feel good.
Чтобы мы комфортно себя чувствовали в обществе.
Let's have a look at the pattern. I remind you that there will be a fold here on the center front. I'll also write it down that the center front should be cut on the grain. This is very important. The bottom will be cut on the crosswise grain. The first fold is going to look this way, and the second one this way. When the both pleats are folded, the pattern looks exactly like the original one. Today we continue working with the dress with the pleats. Origami style is very popular nowadays. This is not really it, but it reminds of it. The pattern for the lower part of the dress is ready. The pattern for the back is also ready. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pattern for the upper part. The pattern for the upper part of the front is actually the only thing left to be made. I love this dress. I hope that at least some of you will make such dresses for yourselves. Let's have a look at the sketch once again. The pleats in the lower part of the dress will be attached on top of each other. They will be different in the upper part. This is how they're going to look like. There will be no asymmetry in the upper part, so I'll be working with just the half of the upper pattern. The first thing I need to do is to draw a line from the center front to the bust top. If you don't like the way the pleats look like in the picture, you can raise them a bit. Stitch their lower part so that the openings start higher.
И вот эти складочки
I'm not
посмотрите,
going
не
to do
прямо
it.
от шва, а чуть выше свободные уже такой защипы. Что я
Watch what I'm
делаю
doing
этим
next.
сюда?
The chest dart
Закрываю
should be
нагрудную
closed this way.
выточку. Просто ее беру вот так вот и закрываю.
I'll
Центр
sign the center
переда.
front.
Сгиб.
There will be a fold here,
Долевая.
and it should be cut on the grain. This is very important. I've
Закрываю
closed the
нагрудную
original
выточку.
chest dart.
И
I
закрываю
remind you that
талию.
this is a
Вот
part of the
смотрите,
waist
у меня
tuck.
еще есть талия.
It should be closed as well.
Я ее тоже закрываю. Я не буду
I'm
здесь
not going to
вставлять
change this
треугольник,
opening.
открывать, выводить
I'll
вот
just
эти
mark
углы.
these angles in the
Отметим
fabric,
вот эти
and then
точки,
cut
а
the
ткани
extra
вот
pieces
тут
when the
вырежем
pleats
просто
are ready.
побольше, а потом, когда заложим, обрежем
This is a very
излишки.
simple
Здесь мы
technique.
пойдем более простым
We
путем,
couldn't
но
do it when working with the
нижнюю
lower
часть
part of the
платья мы
pattern.
могли.
Just
Представляете,
imagine how
девочки, какие
beautiful
будут
this dress is
красивые.
going to
Теперь
be.
вот у меня
Be very
долевая
attentive.
вот моя
This is the
нагрудная и
center
талиевая
front.
выточка, две в
These
одном.
are the
Так
chest
не
and the
пойдет.
waist
Как
tucks moved
говорит моя
together.
внуча Ариша,
It's
так
not
не
okay.
пойдет. Ну, примерно
This is what my
параллельно
granddaughter
первой
Irina
стороне
likes to say.
выточки.
It's not okay.
Давайте параллельно второй
I need to
стороне
draw one more
выточки,
line
да,
here.
параллельно второй
It should be
стороне
parallel
выточки.
to the second dart leg.
Сантиметров. Насколько
Where
у
should
нас
it be
вот
drawn?
тут вот вторая
For the pleats
выточка
to match,
должна быть.
the second one should be placed
Вот в этой точке, чтобы они у нас
13.5 centimeters
совпали,
away
она
from the
должна
center
быть
front.
от центра переда у нас 13
Be very attentive.
сантиметров.
The
От
second
центра
dart in the
переда
lower
до
part of
начала
the
второй
dress
выточки.
should
Для
match
того,
the
чтобы
second dart in the
вторая
upper part of the
выточка
dress.
сверху совпала со
Have a
второй
look at the
складочкой
sketch once
здесь.
again.
Смотрите,
As I've
у
already
нас в
said,
эскизе
the second
вторая
darts in the
выточка
lower and the upper
начинается
details
в
should match.
эскизе. Там, где
I
начинается
actually don't want the
нижняя
second dart in
часть
the upper
воротника.
detail to be
Я хочу, чтобы
placed
она
that
была
far
выше.
from
Я
the
не
center
хочу
front.
так далеко уводить эту
I
выточку.
wanted to
У
match
меня
the
здесь
second line of the
очень
first
много
pleat in the
ткани
lower
сбоку, поэтому
detail.
я вторую выточку строю от второй линии первой складочки. Вот. Это будет
I think that
логичнее
the
у меня
pleats
в
will look
данном
much better
случае,
in
потому
this
что у меня
case.
тут большие расстояния. И я рисую
I'll make the
линию
second one a bit
немножко
shorter
короче
than the dart
нагрудной
is.
выточки. Вот если у нас тут, то чуть-чуть короче. Сейчас я вам все покажу.
If I drew the second pleat the way it looks like in the sketch, the distance between the two pleats would have been too big. Watch what I'm doing.
Но у меня будет там очень большое вот тут вот расстояние, очень большое между выточками верхними. Поэтому я вывела ее сюда вот в эту точку. Смотрите, что
I've
я
made a
делаю.
cut here.
Нарезала. И от этой точки
And next you
я
need to make a cut
разрезаю
towards the dart
к
top.
вершине выточки. Смотрите, что
The
у меня
center front,
получилось. У меня
the
получилось
chest and the
вот
waist
такое.
tucks,
Здесь долевая. Вот моя
the second
нагрудная и
opening.
талиевая выточка. Вот
It
мой
should be
второй
smaller
разрез.
than the first
Я
one.
его немножечко, ну не
I
совсем
don't want
так
to add any
наполовину, ну
extension
хотя бы
here.
вот так на
I
одну
want the
треть
dress to fit me
открываю. Это
perfectly.
все равно должно остаться больше.
I
а
might
это
even make a
меньше.
dart here instead
Но
of the
дело в
pleat.
том, что я не хочу еще
I don't want to have
дополнительно
any
давать
extra
свободу,
opening here.
чтобы мне
It
потом
wouldn't
вот
look
так вот
good.
все разваливалось. Пусть вот это будет маленький защипчик или выточка, вот эта вторая. Я посмотрю, когда начну кроить, что у меня получится. Может, у меня вот это будет защип, а это выточка. Ну, как бы
I
не
remind
хочу,
you
чтобы
that there is a
сбоку у меня
tiny
вот
opening
ткань
here.
была заложена, а потом туда
Just don't pay
сваливалась. Нет,
attention to
я
it.
против.
It should
Вот
be
этот
closed
вот,
with the sticky
видите,
tape.
тут открылся такой
The pattern for the
вариантик
upper part of
здесь.
the
Мы
front
просто
is ready.
игнорируем. Просто игнорируем и все. Верх у нас готов.
If you want the pleats to look exactly like in the picture, you can add some extension here. I didn't want to do it. This is why these openings were made at the openings of the chest and the waist tucks. I'll just continue cutting these lines the way they are now. I'll show you how to do it. This is what I'm talking about. The extra pieces will be cut later.
Поэтому мы специально вот такой угол не строили.
The center front should match in the upper and the lower details. The pattern for the dress is ready. As I've already said, you can make these openings wider. I like them the way they are now. That's it. I showed you how to make a pattern for this amazing dress. I know that the pattern is pretty complicated. Don't worry, once you start working, you'll realize that it's not as complicated as it seems. Today we continue working with the pleated dress. Last time I showed you how to make a pattern for it. Today I'm going to show you how to cut it. This is going to be a detailed video, so you won't have any questions left. Have a look at the sketch and the photo once again. I can move them aside. I've realized that this piece of fabric isn't wide enough. It's just 110 centimeters wide. I didn't expect that to happen. Notice that there is not enough fabric for this piece of the pattern here. I've decided to make a pocket of it. Due to this fact, this piece can be cut of different part of the fabric and then tacked here. This piece can be cut. I'm not really going to make a pocket. It's going to be a pocket imitation. It's very important not to lose this piece of the pattern. I've added 6 centimeters to the bottom, 3 centimeters for the overcast extension, and 3 centimeters to the length extension. The pattern was 105 centimeters long originally. This is the lower front detail. I've pinned the center front to the fold. I remind you that it should be cut on the grain. Be very attentive when cutting these details. You need to be very accurate when working with the seam extensions. Do not forget to make the space and seams on these lines. It should be done for us to be able to make beautiful accurate pleats. Do not forget about this detail. It's very important. I can start cutting now. When the detail is cut, the space and seams are made, I'll start cutting the bodice and the back. I'm going to cut the sleeves off the camera. The width of the seam extension is about 1 centimeter. I'm cutting it by side. As I've already said, the lower part of the front is the first detail to be cut. It's better to make a detail longer than needed, and then just cut the extra piece, then make a detail shorter than needed. The dress is pretty complicated. This is why I'm being so accurate and careful. Next, I want to cut the fabric for this small piece as well. The detail isn't straight. Anyway, I'm going to cut it according to the grain. I'll be working just with the lower part of the front for now. I was so happy that I managed to buy this piece of fabric. I've even promised Ola to make her a sweatshirt of it as well. Here's the cut detail. This is how it looks like now. I can move all the other things aside. This detail is the only thing needed at the moment. In order for the pleats to be accurate, I need to make the space and seams on the first lines and the fold in each of the pleats. I need to pin the lines in order to be able to trace them to the other side. When it's done, I'll detach the pattern and trace them to this side as well. I need to pin and tack the 4 lines. I also want to make a space and seam on the center front. It should be done for me to work with it without any problems. I'm pinning the fold and the first line in each of the pleats. When I pin the lines, I'll turn the detail. I'm going to draw the lines with the ruler. The first lines in the both pleats should be pinned. This is very important. I remind you that the lines are signed. I need to turn the detail next. I'm going to use a ruler and a piece of chalk for drawing the pinned lines. I'm working with the first pleat. The fold is already drawn, and I'm drawing the first line now. I've drawn all the needed lines. These are the folds, and these are the lines. Do not forget to mark the center front. This is very important. I'll even make a tiny notch here. I can detach the pattern next. I'm not going to throw this pattern away. I like the dress, so it might be useful for me again. I don't want to waste my time making the same pattern once again. Do not forget to make a notch in the center front. This is also the center front. There is going to be a fold here. I can move the pattern aside. The first thing I want to do is to make a spacing seam on the center front. It should be done in order for me not to make any mistakes. Don't be lazy. Such details are not a waste of time.
Вот такие операции никогда не надо лениться делать.
When this seam is ready, I'll trace the drawn lines to this side. I need to make the spacing seams on the both sides. If the piece of fabric you're working with is wider, you won't have to cut this piece separately. You're lucky. I didn't expect such thing to happen. I was planning to sew not only the dress, but also a sweater for Ola of this piece of fabric. I remind you that the piece of fabric I'm working with is 110 centimeters wide. I'm not going to unfold the cut detail. It will be much more convenient to work with it this way. These are the drawn lines. I need to pin them. I'm doing it in order to trace them to the other side. There is a spacing seam on the center front here and a notch here. Making spacing seams prevents us from making mistakes. I like it that we've moved past the point where I was showing you only the most simple designs. Very nice. This is the first line. If you don't make the spacing seams, you won't be able to make accurate high-quality garments. It's not a waste of time. I need to draw the second pleat next. This is the first line. And this is the fold. It's not hard to draw the lines according to the pins. I can take them out now. The next thing I need to do is to tag this detail. I don't want to lose it. It's not hard to make spacing seams in the drawn lines. There is no need to measure or calculate anything else. Have a look at what I'm doing. I've already made the spacing seam on the center front. The spacing seams should be made in all of the drawn lines. I've made most of the seams off the camera. Make the spacing seams according to the lines. As I've already said, it's not hard to do it.
Точно по нашим линиям, ничего не надо думать. Сейчас такая работа, просто техническая работа. Ура!
Let's have a look at what we got here. The center front, the two lines in each of the pleats. The piece of fabric wasn't wide enough, so I had to cut these details. It's okay though. The pockets are going to be very beautiful. Watch what I'm doing. I need to fold the second line first, the one which marks the fold. Make sure that the seams match. The fold should be hidden inside the detail. I remind you that there is a notch on the center front here. It matches the spacing seam on the center front perfectly. This is very important. I need to fold the same pleat on the other side next. The notches should match the spacing seam. Watch what I'm doing. The fold should be pinned. This is how the first pleat looks like now. This is the center front. I remind you that the pleat should be stitched right over left. The notches on the center front should match. When I pin the details, I'll tag them. When it's done, I'll take the pins out. This is a regular waistline. You do not necessarily have to make such dresses. You can make skirts this way. Next, I need to make and pin the second pleats. They should be pinned just like the first ones. Fold the details in such way that the spacing seam on the fold matches the spacing seam on the first line. Be very accurate when working with the needed fabric.
Трикотаж нет, вот так у нас все хорошо, да, вот так.
I'm
Сейчас
going
я
to
вот
tack
так
the
вот
waistline
вставлю, и
next.
всё. Когда смотришь на
I know
такие
that such
фасоны,
garments
сразу
seem
понимаешь,
impossible to be made when you look at them at the
делать,
pictures.
что когда кто-то показывает. Видите,
Once you
какое
start working,
стеснение,
you
да?
realize that
Можете
there's
взять
nothing
эти
complicated about them.
стеснения. Вторую складочку
You just need to be
вот
careful.
какое вам нравится
I
расстояние.
remind you that in
Здесь
my
вот
dress,
такая как
this
бы
detail is 10
длина
centimeters
кармана.
wide.
Видите, да?
You can make it tighter
Это
if you
потому,
want.
что мне тут не хватило.
You can also change the
Беру
position
и
of the
просто
second
смотрю.
pleat. Next, I need to tack the waistline.
И просто смётываю.
Make sure that you tack these fold
Видите, вот
accurately.
эта внутренняя
Its
часть,
top
вот эта
side
внутренняя
should match the
часть,
waistline.
внутренняя, чтобы
This is very
кверху
important.
уходил, чтобы он туда не утонул. Я закончила
I
смётывать
finished
край,
taking the
заложила
edge.
складочки, вы видели,
I
как я
showed you how to
заложила
tack the
внимательно
pleats.
центр, совместила с центром.
I
И
remind you that I
внутри
pinned the
всё
detail for
сложила, сколола
stitching.
и сметала. И всё.
The
И вот
lower
вид
front
у нас
detail is
готов.
ready.
Я думаю, что
You do
если
not
даже вы
necessarily have to
захотите
make two
сделать вот
pleats
эти
on each
вторых
side.
складок, вы прекрасно
You can make just the two
сделаете.
pleats on the
Вот с
center.
этими вот центральными складочками.
The skirt is going to look
Очень
amazing.
шикарная, очень роскошная юбка. Ну вот так это выглядит.
Of course, it's going to look
Александр
different when
сейчас
it's stitched to the
покажет, как
bodice.
выглядит. Да.
It will look much better.
Его надо пришить к переду. Ну
Needed
что,
fabric
что-то
stretch,
примерно вот
so
такое.
it's hard for me to show you how the skirt is
Я
going to
хочу
look like.
сказать, что у нас время, да,
It took
отрезает
me
так
quite a
много,
lot of
что
time to
нужно
cut
пришить
and
к
tack
переду,
this
тогда нам
detail.
будет лежать красиво. Я хочу
Next
сказать,
time,
что
I'm going to
на
cut
этом
the
мы
upper
наше
front
видео
detail
заканчиваем,
and the
потому что
back.
время ушло очень много
When
на
the dress is
вот
tacked,
нижние части.
I'll try it
Это
on.
сложно. На следующем
If you do
видео
everything the way we show
верхнюю
you,
часть слив
you won't have any problems.
спинку, соберем все платье и сделаем примерку. Если вы будете работать в том же порядке,
Just
в
be
каком мы на этом
careful
уроке,
and
вы
attentive.
преуспеете. Уже
Last time I showed you how to cut
Но дело
and
в том,
tack
что
the
мне
lower part of the
пришлось,
dress.
я немножко
Today I'm
обронила,
going to show you how
поэтому
to
мы
cut
две
and
части
tack the
сняли,
upper front
а третью
detail
часть
and the
снимаем
back.
сейчас. Я хочу
I
сейчас
can't wait
вырезать
to try the dress on.
верхнюю часть лифа.
I'm not going to make the sleeves for the fitting. I want you to learn to use your imagination. You can make any sleeves you like. I've already showed you several types of sleeves. Don't be afraid of experiments. This is the sketch for the dress we're making for the customer. I'm going to make longer sleeves in my dress. I'm going to try the dress on without attaching the sleeves. We're going to make them later off the camera. These are the upper front detail and the back. I can start cutting now. I always tell you not to add too wide seam extensions. It's not convenient to work with them.
Это очень потом мешает работе.
Have a close look here. I remind you that we don't usually add any seam extension to these angles when cutting. I'm working with a knitted fabric now, so I'd better add some here. I remind you that I've raised the waistline for about 2 centimeters when making the pattern. You do not necessarily have to do it. You can make a mock-up, try it on, and decide where you want the pleats to be placed, whether you want to raise them or not. As I always say, we can sew and wear anything we want. I raised the waistline for 2 centimeters in my dress. I remind you that there are the shoulder darts in the back detail. How wide is it? It's 2.2 centimeters wide now. I'm going to move and cut the opening here. There will be no dart here on the shoulder. I also want to make the shoulder more straight. I remind you that I'm making the dress of the knitted fabric. I've moved the dart opening here. I'm not going to make it out here at all. I'll just cut it. As I've already said, the shoulder should be made more straight. I remind you that the front neckline was made 1.5 cm wider. The back one should be made 1.5 cm wider as well. The shoulder should be even. I can start cutting now. I haven't done anything off the camera. I don't want you to have any questions left. I want to check if the waistlines match. It's very important to do it. They do. Let's have a look at the side seam. This one should be made 1 cm longer. I hate it when I start sewing a garment and then stop working on it for some reason. By the time I get back to working with it, I don't remember anything about it. I hate it when it happens, so I try to avoid such situations. I'm sure that many of you will make such dresses. I've made the very detailed tutorials on the pattern making. I also showed you how to tack and cut the details very thoroughly. Next, I need to trace this tack to the fabric. I used to ignore the waist tacks when sewing dresses. Now that I've lost some weight, I can't allow myself doing it. I want my perfect body to be seen. This is the upper front detail. This is the back. Natalie is going to trace the waist tack to the other side. When it's done, she'll start taking the details. There are the two openings here. I need to trace them to the fabric first. You know that I don't like knitted fabrics. It's not convenient to work with them. Anyway, sometimes we had to do even what we don't like to do. The dart should start at the same point in the center front. The dress will look amazing in this case. I can detach the pattern now. Next, these darts should be traced to the other side. I remind you that there is a fold here on the center front. We'll start taking these darts 1 cm up from the edge. It won't be convenient to stitch them the way we're stitching now. You won't be able to make the darts look exactly like in the sketch if you stitch them right from the edge. Be very attentive. I've drawn a mark 1 cm up from the bottom. This is the point which should be traced to the wrong side. I've pinned it. The dress turned out to be pretty complicated. I couldn't even show you the whole cutting and taking process in the same video. It would have been too long. Imagine you stop working on a dress for some time and then get back to sewing it in a week or two. It will be very hard for you to work on it in this case. When the darts are traced, I'll start taking them. I can take the pins out and start taking the darts. I'm going to take the two bigger darts first. Natalie is taking the center back. The width of the seam is 1 centimeter. I remind you that I'm making the dress of the knitted fabric. I think that I'm not going to insert a zipper in it. Natalie, what do you think? Maybe it would be better to insert a tiny zipper in the side seam. We could also double the waistline with a strong cross-grain ribbon. The waistline should bear the perfect shape. You can either double it with a piece of strong cotton fabric or with a cross-grain ribbon, for example. The first darts are ready. I'm going to tack the second one next. I'll also tack the darts to the wrong side for the fitting. I want to make these edges straight after taking the darts. Let's have a look at the center front. Perfect. I can cut these details now. Next, I'm going to tack the darts to the wrong side for the fitting. This is how the upper part of the front looks like now. The dress is going to be so beautiful. I'm taking the darts to the wrong side. I want them to fit me perfectly at the fitting. When I was learning to sew, we were taught to always tack the darts to the wrong side for a fitting. It should be done for you to see how the dress is actually going to look like. Have a look at the table. The lower part of the dress is ready. The upper part of the dress is ready. We're going to tack them together. When it's done, we'll tack the side seams. After that, I'll try the dress on. Have a look here. I don't like the way this edge looks like now. I'm going to make a straight seam when taken. Make sure that the marks on the center front match. This is very important. I remind you that both darts and the upper detail start from the same point. Natalie is going to tack the details. When the dress is tacked, I'll try it on. The waistline should definitely be doubled with a cross-grain ribbon. I want it to be accurate. I've also decided to insert a small zipper in the side seam. It will also make the waistline stronger. People often ask me how we decide which seams to press open and which close. When the seams are stitched, you need to have a close look at them and decide how to press them, which of the sides to make smaller, and so on. What is very important is that you should press only the seam itself. Do not press the other details when working with the seams. This is very important. Natalie, can you please tack faster? I can't wait to try the dress on. I know that she's trying. I do. But I just can't wait. I want to try the dress on. Of course I can't wait. Just not for long. As I've already said, I'm going to make different sleeves. The ones in the sketch were made for the customer. In my dress, the sleeves are going to be longer. The dress itself is going to be pretty warm. You can make the dresses of the lighter or more beautiful fabrics. In this case, the small sleeves, like the ones in the sketch, will be perfect. You can make the drop shoulders, or you can even make long sleeves. I want you to understand that we can sew and wear anything we want. I know the type of the sleeves which I like. Thick water ones in winter and short ones in summer. My daughter Inga loves long sleeves. I don't know why. You know what? I've forgotten to add 1 centimeter to the length of the back. It's sometimes pretty hard for me to talk to you and work at the same time. It's okay, we'll decide what to do with it. The most important thing is that we showed you how to make a pattern and how to cut this dress. Natalie, do not forget that my body is perfect. Make the seams wider. What would I do without Natalie by my side? I love you. I'm ready to get undressed. In order to put the tech dress on, of course. Have a look at me. I'm wearing the tech dress. When I put it on, we realized that it's better to make the bar tags under the pleats for them to look better, like we usually do when stitching the lining. When the dress is ready, we'll show it to you, both the right and the wrong sides. The most important thing is that I showed you how to make a pattern for this dress, how to cut and take it. I'm tired of the boring designs. This one is very interesting. I'm glad that I had the chance to show you this dress. I show you a lot of useful details and techniques. I want you to use them. Don't be afraid of experiments. Practice makes perfect. I'm wearing the dress with the pleats on the front. It's finally ready. I showed you how to make a pattern for this dress, how to cut and take it. It took me pretty long to make this dress. I had to stop working on it for some time. I hate it when it happens. It's really hard to get back to working on a garment after a pause. When I got back to working with the dress, I didn't remember what I had done with it. How wide were the seam extensions? How much I've added for the overcast? You look at it, not knowing what to do. This is what happens to me. I remind you that I've forgotten to add some extension to the bottom when cutting the back. This is why I had to make the dress a bit shorter. I think that it's not long enough now. I would love it to be about 3 centimeters longer. Well, I like it anyway. The most important thing is that now you know how to make such amazing pleats. These pleats were just folded without being stitched. The ones closer to the center front were stitched to the main front detail. When I take the dress off, I'll show you how it was done. The waistline was doubled with a gross grain ribbon. It was done for it to be stronger. There is a zipper inserted in the side seam. There was no other thing for us to do but to insert a zipper. Due to the fact that we've doubled the waistline with a gross grain ribbon, it doesn't stretch. The most important thing is that now you know how to make such beautiful pleats. They remind me of the origami style. I showed you how to make a pattern for these pleats very thoroughly. You can make the pleats in any details you want: skirts, bodice, sleeves. I've already showed you how to make different types of pleats and draping. I like the dress. I don't like the fact that it's not long enough, but it's okay. Now you know what happens when you take a break from sewing a garment. I've put the matching accessories on. I'm also wearing my favorite pair of the matching shoes. Have a look at the back. I remind you that it's pretty simple. This is my favorite type of the sleeves. I hate long sleeves. I don't wear them. Have a look at the V-neck.
А сейчас я
Next, I
возьму
want to put this
платье,
dress on the
прячу
table to show you the wrong
и
side
на
of it.
столе покажу вам, как оно устроено снутри.
Have a look at me
Еще раз
once again.
смотрите. Перед
I've
вами
taken the
платье,
dress
которое я
off
сняла с себя и
and put
положила
it on the
на стол.
table.
Смотрите,
This
передняя
is how the
часть
front looks like
репчиковая.
from the wrong side.
Поговорим о
Let's have a
талии.
look at the
На талии
waistline.
вот такая репсовая лента.
There
Она
is a gross grain
прикреплена
ribbon
вот
attached
впереди.
here.
Вот,
Have a look at the
приспущена.
way it was stitched.
Тут такие грубые, много
Here on the
складок.
center front
И
and on the side seams.
под молнию в боковой шов. По
What about the
центру.
back?
Но зато благодаря
It's stitched
вот
to
этой
the center
репсовой
back.
ленте очень хорошо держится
The gross grain
платье на
ribbon makes
талии.
the
Ты его
waistline large
чувствуешь, и
stronger.
оно прямо так
Due to
вот
this
себя
fact,
хорошо
the dress fits you
чувствует.
perfectly.
Дальше хочу вот о чем сказать.
There's
Я
one
хочу
more thing I
поговорить
want to
об
tell
этом
you.
узле. Шов
Let's have a look
очень
here.
узкий.
Notice that the seam on the waistline was pressed open. There are pleats both in the upper and the lower details, so there was no other way for pressing the seam. It should be thin and soft. Be very accurate when working with it. These are the two pleats. Here they are. This is the facing for the front neckline. Its lower edge was attached to the main fabric by hands. The facing was doubled with the interfacing material. It's pretty wide. Notice that the only detail which was lined was the front detail of the skirt. There is no lining in the upper detail of the front and in the back. The lining was attached to the lower part of the front for us to be able to attach the pleats to it. The gross grain ribbon was attached to the waistline. If we didn't insert the zipper here, I would not have been able to put the dress on. When the dress is zipped, it fits the body perfectly. I'm glad that I have an opportunity to share such interesting details with you. Most of the techniques we show you won't find in the books or magazines. We create them ourselves. Let's have a close look at some of the details. Have a look at the way the girls edged the zipper with the lining. Let's have a look at the pleats next. These are the first pleats, and these are the second ones. Notice that these ones are not stitched anyhow. They look good enough this way. Let's have a look at the first ones. I wanted to make 3 bar tacks here. The pleats were actually stitched to the lining. It's up to you whether to stitch these pleats or not, how many bar tacks to make, and so on. This is the detail which I'm talking about. It's the one which was stitched to the lining. Let's have a look at the way the girls stitched the pleats. I'll turn the dress wrong side out. They didn't make the bar tacks. They stitched the whole edge this way. Due to this fact, the pleats will always look beautiful. As I've already said, the lower part of the front is the only line detail. I've already told you about the gross grain ribbon. Have a look here. The dress was ironed perfectly. I crumpled it when I tried it on. Have a close look here. I wanted the lining to cover the seam. This is why it was made longer than needed. It wouldn't have looked beautiful if the girls made the lining shorter. It looks absolutely perfect. The seam is hidden under the lining. There are so many interesting details in this dress. I like it when I have an opportunity to show you not only the making of a garment, but also its review when it's ready. This is one of them. I showed you how to make a pattern for this dress, how to cut and take it. I showed you a lot of interesting details and techniques. I love the design. I hope that you do too.
Слушать себя. Серый цвет
Remember
хорошо,
that
черный
practice
хорошо,
makes
иногда
perfect.
хочется что-то поярче.
We
Слушать
can
себя.
sew and
С чем
wear
соединяется
anything we
ваша
want.
душа, такой цвет и
This is
выбирать
very
себе.
important. That's all
Ставьте
for
лайки,
today. Be different and
подписывайтесь,
beautiful.
подписывайтесь
My
на
name
наш
is
канал,
Paukshte
делитесь
Irina.
нашими
Subscribe
видео.
to my
Всего
channel,
хорошего,
write
с вами
comments,
была я,
share the videos,
Paukshte
press the like and the bell
Irina
buttons.
и
I
вся
would
наша
really
команда.
appreciate your
И
support.
еще всем
Thank you.
желаю быть
Goodbye.
готовыми к праздникам.